children, welcome to iTTV's Year 6 English lesson. I'm your teacher Christine, and as usual we will begin with vocabulary building, and this will be followed by a lesson on prepositions. So are you ready, children? Here's the first word for today. Celebrate. What does celebrate mean? Celebrate means to have special events to mark a happy day. Let's look at it in a sentence. Malaysia usually celebrates its Independence Day on a grand scale. Malaysia usually celebrates its Independence Day on a grand scale. Now we move on to our second word, and it is custom. Now what does custom mean? Custom means a long-time habit of a society. A long-time habit of a society. And the word in a sentence. It is a Malaysian custom to remove your footwear before you enter someone's home. It is a Malaysian custom to remove your footwear before you enter someone's home. Let's move on to our third word. And it is scenery. And scenery means the surrounding sights. Let's look at it in a sentence. We took the coastal road to Kota Bharu and enjoyed the beautiful scenery along the way. We took the coastal road to Kota Bharu and enjoyed the beautiful scenery along the way. Now moving on to the fourth word. And it is destination. Destination means the place you intend to arrive at. And the word in a sentence? The bus finally reached its destination after dark. The bus finally reached its destination after dark. And now the last word for today is tourist. Tourist means a person who travels for pleasure. Now let's look at it in a sentence. Many tourists enjoy eating our delicious Malaysian food. Many tourists enjoy eating our delicious Malaysian food. Let's go through the 5 new words you've learned today, children. The first word, celebrate. The next word, custom. The next word, scenery. The next one, destination. And the last word, tourist. Have you got all those words down, children? Good. Well, we now move on to prepositions. Children, do you know what a preposition is? Let's find out. A preposition is a word used with a noun or pronoun to show time, place, position. Prepositions that show time can be used with these words: at, on, for, till, since. Let's look at some examples of prepositions that show time. My grandparents will arrive at 3 o'clock on Sunday. My grandparents will arrive at 3 o'clock on Sunday. The next sentence, the children have been here since this morning. The children have been here since this morning. The next sentence, they have been waiting for a long time. They have been waiting for a long time. Now let's look at prepositions that show place. The words are behind, near, against, in, between, on, beside, opposite, under, in front of. Let's look at some examples of sentences. The first sentence, they stood under a tree near the river. They stood under a tree near the river. And the two prepositions there are under and near. The next sentence, Place your books in this bag and put it behind the door. Place your books in this bag and put it behind the door. And the two prepositions here, in, behind. The next sentence. You may park your car in front of my house, but not beside the fire hydrant. You may park your car in front of my house, but not beside the fire hydrant. And yes, you've guessed the prepositions. They are in front of and beside. Now we move on to prepositions that show position. And the words are up, off, across, below, around, to, towards, along. Shall we look at some examples of sentences? He ran along the river bank, then swam across the river. He ran along the river bank, then swam across the river. The two prepositions there are along and across. The next sentence. The driver lost control of the car and drove towards the trees. The driver lost control of the car and drove towards the trees. The preposition here, towards. The next one, my classroom is the one below the school office. My classroom is the one below the school office. So this preposition shows the position of the classroom. Now let's look at some examples of these prepositions. To tells us the direction towards. As seen in this example, they went to the airport. They went to the airport. The next example, are you going to the bank now? Are you going to the bank now? Into shows entrance with a verb of motion. Into shows entrance with a verb of motion. And the example, the cat fell into the drain. So it shows the motion of the cat falling into the drain. Next one, she poured the coffee into the glass. She poured the coffee into the glass. We look at more pairs of prepositions. When do we use upon and on? These are two words that we sometimes get confused with. Let's look at the examples. On is used to show position and time. Example of a sentence, the kite is stuck on the tree. And here, on shows the position. The next example, the shop is closed on Mondays. On here shows time. Let's look at how we could use upon in a sentence. Upon is used to show motion. Example of a sentence, I chanced upon this book while browsing in the bookstore. I chanced upon this book while browsing in the bookstore. The next example, the police sprang upon the robbers while they were resting. The police sprang upon the robbers while they were resting. There are still more prepositions that we can be confused with. When do we use till and since? Let's look at it. Till and since both show time but are not used in the same way. Remember that? Till and since both show time but are not used in the same way. Till is used to show up to a certain time. And the sentence, he stayed up to study till late last night. He stayed up to study till late last night. Since is used from a certain time in the past until the present. The sentence, she has been ill since last week. She has been ill since last week. So it's from a certain time in the past to the present. Well, children, I hope you will not be confused when you use the prepositions that you have learned. I hope you have understood all that you have learned today because I have an exercise for you. So would you take out your books and get ready for this exercise that I'm going to show you now? Are you ready, children? All right, here it is. Underline the correct preposition from the brackets. Underline the correct preposition from the brackets. The first sentence, he put the money into the purse. He put the money into the purse. The next one, the show ended at till 11 o'clock. So you have to choose between at and till. Number 3, she has been living in that house since she was born. She has been living in that house since she was born. Number 4, my neighbors erected a fence round their house to keep the dogs away. My neighbors erected a fence round their house to keep the dogs away. You have to choose between and round. And number 5, the ball went through the window and landed on the sofa. The ball went through the window and landed on the sofa. Children, choose between into and through. Number 6, we always see the sign, beware of 4 pickpockets. We always see the sign, beware of 4 pickpockets. Choose between of and for. Number 7, she has just recovered from a bout of flu. She has just recovered from a bout of flu. Choose between for and from. Number 8, are you satisfied with at her work? Are you satisfied with at her work? You have to choose between with and at. Number 9, he stood between the car and waited for his friend. He stood between the car and waited for his friend. Choose between, beside, and between. Number 10. The child in the apartment below mine is always crying. The child in the apartment under below mine is always crying. You have to choose between under and below. Right, I hope you have got all that. Let's see whether you have got the answers correct. We will go through the answers together. Alright, are you ready? He put the money in or into the purse. Let's look at the answer, children. It's into. He put the money into the purse. The next one. The show ended at or till 11 o'clock. What do you think? Yes, the show ended at 11 o'clock. Number 3. She has been living in that house since she was born. And the answer? She has been living in that house since she was born. Number 4. My neighbors erected a fence round their house to keep the dogs away. Did you get that? Let's move on to number 5. The ball went through the window and landed on the sofa. The ball went through the window and landed on the sofa. Number 6. We always see the sign, beware of pickpockets. Yes, this is a usual sign that you see in all shopping malls. Number 7. She has just recovered from a bout of flu. She has just recovered from a bout of flu. Number 8. Are you satisfied with her work? Are you satisfied with her work? Moving on to number 9. He stood, yes, beside the car and waited for his friend. He couldn't have stood between the car. So he stood beside the car and waited for his friend. And the last one. The child in the apartment below mine is always crying. The child in the apartment below mine is always crying. Well, children, I hope you did well in that exercise. But if you haven't, you can always try again. Before I take my leave, let's summarize what we have learned today. Today, you learned 5 new words, and they are celebrate, custom, scenery, destination, and tourist. And you also learned about prepositions of time, place, and position. I hope you have enjoyed today's lesson as much as I have, and I hope you have found what you have learned today very useful. Till we meet again then, bye-bye.